Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another One Piece manga review. This week we're reviewing chapter 1017, The Order, and I'm joined by my guy Christian Hollinger. As always, Christian, how you doing this week, man?
Doing really well. How you doing?
Doing well, man. That break went by kind of fast, relative. It was slow at first, but like as we got to the weekend of last week, breezed through. And this was probably one of the better chapters since Luffy's gotten off the rooftop.
Without a doubt, yeah.
So I'm excited to get started to talk about this one. Let's just dive right in. Basically, how we do this, we do a quick summary, and then we go into each themes and breakdowns of each part of the chapter. So it starts off with Otama being a little scared because Queen's intimidating her, but Usopp's like, nah, Otama, you got to do this. But before Otama even gives her command, we go through basically parts of the battle. We see Jinbe and Who's Who. We see a little tiny clip of Frankie and Sasaki. We see Inuarashi and Jack. And then we go through other portions where gifters are fighting gifters and headliners are fighting samurai. And basically after that, we get Otama's message to, you have to change sides, fight for Momo and Luffy. We then get a split shot of Momo and Luffy. Basically, Luffy going through his hyperbolic time chamber, or his Zenkai boost, as you will say. And basically she says, you got to help us beat Kaido. And then we go through all of the different gifters who've eaten the Kibidango to see them change the ships of the tide. We see Jack and Inuarashi. Basically, all the people that were annoying Jack is out the way. Same thing with Jinbe and Who's Who. And then we get a brief shot to CP9 or CP-0, who's like, very strange. What's going on? Are the tides are turning? So it seems like hope is on the rise again. Hope is really on the rise right now. And Queen's like, girl, you got to shut up. But, Sanji stops that like, nah, girl, you're not about to stop Otama from doing what she's got to do. And then basically Queen drops a little line that we're going to dive into. We then see his hybrid form straight on Cyborg. Sanji then cuts the chopper saying, are you all right? And then like Luffy was in his hyperbolic time chamber, we then get Zoro in getting his Zenkai boost of the zone of the Minks had this medicine that if they take, instantly healed, but the pain when it's all done is going to be 2 times worse, which we know is okay for our man Zoro, who's experienced nothing happen, and that's the path he walks with the Ashura. We then cut back to, which I was very appreciative of, a fight. So it seems like we're diving into these smaller fights while we're waiting for Luffy and Zoro to get back to where they're going. And we get full-on Jinbe versus Who's Who. We then find out that Who's Who used to be a equal, so to say, of the genius Rob Lucci and a former CP9 member. But due to the fact that he lost the gum fruit, they sent his ass to jail. And that's how the chapter ends. Christian, what'd you think of this chapter and where you want to start at?
I thought it was a pretty great chapter.
I agree.
It could be also because we were deprived for a week, but I still think it was a very good chapter. For once, I don't really care to discuss the cover story. I don't really see the relevance outside of it just being, cameo of the goat Buggy. Mm-hmm. So I say we start from the beginning, even though you already did the rundown. So we kind of get, again, the wrapping up of last chapter when Tama began to turn the tide. So it's very interesting here because this is the second time that we've had a kid being put in a position where they have to be very courageous and announce something. Mm-hmm. Momo has done it more than once himself, so I don't mean it like that, but I mean Momo's had to do it, Tama's had to do it. Momo had to do it when Luffy called him out, I want to say on Zoe. He had to do it again in the Udon prison.
Yep.
He had to do it when he got kidnapped by Kanjuro.
He had to do it with Kaido.
Again when with saying his name. Now Tama is effectively in the same place that Momo was, and she's giving out this speech having to be courageous because Queen almost scares her to death. So I do appreciate that. It makes me wonder, what's the relationship between Momo and Tama going to be inevitably. Some people say there might be something with Toko and Momo at some point. I don't know. I don't care too much.
I'm seeing cabin boy potential, cabin boy and cabin girl potential for my girl Tama.
I can see it, but To be honest, I'm not sold on Momo leaving.
I'm more sold
I'm
on
not
Tama
yet.
leaving than him, if I'm gonna be
Tama,
honest.
I'm okay with that. I can see that. Momo seems to be coming into his role a little bit more. So it feels a little weird if, he finally, gets himself to a level where he commands respect. And then he's like, okay, I'm also leaving, just like my dad left Wano. So I'm not sure yet. I can see Cabin Boy, but he also has already been a part of Roger and Whitebeard's ship.
True.
So it's kind of like, I kind of feel like he should stay in Wano, but I'm not sure yet. So yeah, I mean, from there, we almost immediately dive into Jinbe versus Who's Who, and that to me was great. We were
Yeah, I
discussing
loved
this
it.
off of air. The manga leaves plenty of creative ways for an anime to expound upon this because the gist of what I believe we both agreed on was that previously it seemed like Jinbei was kind of on cruise control. He was fighting Who's Who in base form, then Who's Who transforms into his zone form at one point, or he was perhaps resting in his zone form. It's a panel I'm referring to.
Oh,
It was
it's
like he was
early, yeah,
chilling.
where he was just chilling in his
Right.
full
So I
saber
don't
tooth
know if
tiger form.
Jinbei forced him into zone or if that was just him as a cat just chilling. But Who's Who is now definitely back in his base form, and Jinbei is bloody. And Jinbei says something very similar to Luffy, where he's saying, "Okay, I'm a pirate, so I understand this isn't about fair.
Yeah, it's not
Okay,
about getting the one-on-ones.
It's not about running ones. I am an honorable knight, but I understand the situation that we're in. This was three. He says specifically 30,000 versus 5,000. So I get that. Who's Who seems to be pretty amused by this because he's like, well, at least you didn't have the wrong idea. You knew what you were walking
Getting
into,
into,
but
yeah.
you're also a freaking pain because I can't put you down. So that's good.
And then we see the same thing across the board, really, with Jack,
Yeah.
Frankie, and just basically how the gifters are really shaping they're the real difference in the battle as of now.
Mm-hmm. And this brings up something that was very interesting because just because Tama has converted a lot of the gifters to being her followers doesn't mean that the gifters specifically knew what they were doing. They just knew that they had a master and they were going to protect her. So it's interesting that the gifters probably betrayed the other Kaido subordinates who were attacking Tama, but they had perhaps not fully switched sides yet. So this chapter makes it official. Tama says, look, you're on the side of Luffy and the Straw Hats. Kaido needs to be taken down. So now officially, everyone who's eating a Kibidango is on the same exact page. So we get actual betrayals happening that seem to flip the tides. Things like, I believe, a couple of the gifters that we actually got to see their faces and introductions show up again, like Briscola and Poker. And Poker
even
shows
Daifugu
up
from Udon.
Right. And so it seems that in this situation that Jimbei was in, where he was like, okay, it's possibly 1 versus 20 or something. Now Poker comes in and says, look, I'll take care of the riffraff. You get your 1v1, which means Jimbei might be putting Who's Who in his place soon.
Put him in
and
the
we
dirt.
Might be able to actually see that.
That's a fact.
Which is definitely very interesting here. We get to see the same thing with Inuarashi and Jack, where, again, we flash back to Zoe. One of my favorite scenes was when Inu caught Jack's trunk with one hand casually. So we got that statement from Jack quite a few chapters ago. The Tobiropo are not a match for the Red Scabbards. So Jack and Inu seem to be pretty well balanced here. But Jack is saying, look, don't blame me for this numbers thing. This is what it means to have numbers. Facts. So we still understand that Inu is putting up a fight against Jack plus fodder. So if that changes, again, just like with Jimbei, we might get to see Jack, get taken down in a very convincing and interesting way, because Inu does not look like he's out of it.
No, not at
He
all.
is huffing, and maybe this is just the way that Oda draws, but you could say that, he's still enjoying himself. That tongue is out. It almost looks like he's still smiling. So, that's definitely very interesting. But to go back to CP0 real quick, this chapter is the chapter where, she officially screams at the top of her lungs, look, you're on Luffy's side. We're flipping sides. And it seems as though perhaps CP0 now is going to be able to directly piece things together. Tama makes an announcement. Then the tides start to flip. So I'm starting to get worried about that because, I don't think, and I'm kind of skipping, so I'm gonna get back on track.
That's pretty much it between it's just gifters switching sides and going through each, like the interesting stuff happens once we get to CPI just zero in on.
Right. So at first, you might think it might be someone like Queen who's yelling, it's like, hey, someone take care of it. But I really think it's going to end up being a CP0 thing at some point. They're going to take interest in Tama and probably try and kidnap her off screen or, incognito in some way. So that was interesting. We see Luffy comedically spitting up his water, which is hilarious. I'm sure he'll be conscious any chapter now. Still no real clarity on how he was talking to people under the water,
and still no clarity on where Momo and Shinobu are. They just floating.
Right. They're I don't know.
Basically, Momo screams we're so high up, and Kinemon like sad. He's still. So is Shinobu just doing her little kite thing, and they're just flying along?
It could be. I don't know. They could have fallen off into a ledge, and they might be on like the edge of Onigashima right now, enough where Momo can see that Onigashima is floating over Wano, and he's scared. But
are they on the submarine? Because he did say we're high up.
Maybe, but Oda does not give us any kind of surrounding context.
Yeah, no clue on no clue at where he's at. But
I can't even properly,
just felt it was necessary to ask though, because I thought that was interesting. We definitely see Luffy knowing where he's at. Don't necessarily know where Momo's at. But then after all of that, that's where we get into my man Sanji knocking Queen upside his head top. Loved it.
Now, another thing that, this is hilarious because of the break. I remember seeing some people were saying Oda's cultured enough to know not to put father abuse on Father's Day. So that's why we didn't get a chapter. Not because of any other reason, but just so we wouldn't have to see Kaido beat the crap out of his offspring on Father's Day. So
some people didn't care about that. There was some anime and manga that did not care about that and was just like, yeah, we're gonna show some dads getting their ass beat.
Right. So it just hit me that we got no Kaido, Yamato, anything. So we know nothing about what's going on with that.
Zero.
The closest we see to that is this "you gotta help us" scenario. But you can't make out any black sparks. You can't make out anything going on top of the rooftop. So no way for me to speculate on that right now. So yeah, we get some more switcheroos on the
gifter front. Here.
Yeah. We have Daifugo, who everyone's looking up to, saying, yep, we're switching sides. Kaido's the enemy. So it's pretty funny. But that's pretty self-explanatory. So when we get into Queen realizing, okay, I have to shut up Tama, this is where I found something else really funny to me about Queen, okay? So correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Queen pissed at Tama last chapter and Sanji kicked him?
Oh shit. Yeah, maybe.
And the reason why I say this is because after reading the official for the last chapter and the official for this chapter, the official basically translated Queen's reaction as the same. The first time he was like, oh, it's you, Sanji. Sanji interfered or something like that. And then in the unofficial, he said the exact same thing. The official fixed it and had, him saying, damn it, Judge's son again. So he's acknowledging that it happened again. But that makes me question, like, Queen, do you not recognize that you're in a 1v1 right now? Like, why are you surprised Sanji kicked you again?
Last chapter didn't happen. All that happened was Sanji saying Otama. It was the chapter before when he saved Chopper that he was like,
Okay.
oh damn, Judge's son.
Okay. So regardless, though, it's funny. So Sanji shows up, kicks Queen. I have no doubt in my mind that Sanji is above Queen level at this point. So when you actually factor in observation hockey, Queen should know Sanji is a threat.
Mm-hmm.
Sanji, Queen is a threat. They should know, okay, we're about to match up. So this chapter, when Queen was like, damn it, Judge's son again, it's like, yes, you take your eyes off your opponent, what's going to happen? You're going to get kicked in the chest.
Like, I guess he thought Sanji was just going to go somewhere else. I don't know.
Like, I get it. Like, you know, Oda's been showing that Marco's been handling King and Queen sporadically. So it's like Queen will go off and do other things for a couple of seconds or something, come back to a fight. So I don't know if like Queen's expecting to like clash with people and then go off and do his own thing and then clash some more. But it's like Sanji's right here kicking
Facts.
you. Like, so it's
you better do something about it.
I found that hilarious that he was like, what? I got kicked again? Like, yes, pay attention.
But I loved it because then he says, damn, Judge's son. And Sanji's like, bro, don't say that name to me, dog.
Right.
But aren't you a part of that research team? And then we get the name finally. We get Mads. Like, don't know what that means. Interested in that.
Look, if we had to speculate on that, we already have SAD being sad. And we know that at first, I thought SAD couldn't actually be sad. It was too, like, in our faces. But then we find out that it completely eradicates the physical evidence of someone being sad. They can no longer show that. So Queen seems to constantly be snapping. And now we have a name called Mads. And we know that Judge focused on the lineage factor, which was also focused on in the SAD, which is also something that Vegapunk worked on. So when you have Vegapunk, Caesar, Judge,
and now Queen.
Queen, I have no doubt that Mads might have something to do with an emotional spectrum manipulation in the gene, in the lineage factor as well. You know, we see again Queen, and this is also interesting. The unofficial said this is Queen's hybrid form. The official says that this is his man beast form. So this does serve as his hybrid, but here's a question. Did Queen learn his own hybrid form, or did he experiment and make his hybrid form? Is this his devil fruits? I mean, obviously it's not just his devil fruits form. So if we use, you know, like Kaido still has like his chin and his mustache, even though his face is covered like Batman's mask by the dragon in his hybrid form. We can see Queen also is wearing his dinosaur Zoan like a Batman mask, so to speak, like a cowl.
Yeah.
So that lends me to think that what Queen did was he experimented on his hybrid form. So this is his hybrid form plus his
experimentations. Yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
So it kind of threw me off that it wasn't in the official called the hybrid form.
Yeah, it was a little weird.
But effectively, it is his hybrid form, right?
His hybrid cyborg form. That's what I would assume. That's how I took it as, because he is straight up. He does have his man-like characteristics.
Right.
So I just assumed that was his hybrid form. But I do think he experimented on his hybrid form using what he knew from Judge Vegapunk in that group, because he did say that's ages ago. So that seems like he's beyond that. He's concerned with his augmentations in his way of adjusting the lineage factor and DNA and all of that. It seems like Judge was more so about cloning said lineage factor and making more actual humans or clones. Queen was about adding augmentations to the lineage factor, thus changing it around. And it seems like Vegapunk was about creating new devil fruits through what you learn from the lineage factor. It seems like each of them took something different from their research.
And another thing that I love about this is if you look at the augmentations that we've seen, they look exactly like Yanji's raid suit. You know, Yanji could stretch his arms. He has.
Wow, it really does.
So I think that that's going to end up heaving Sanji off at a higher level. So I got definite Yanji vibes from Queen. But this is interesting because, again, Queen at this point is matching up with a lot of people just on a conceptual level. Like, I could see Frankie fighting against Queen and them having a cyborg battle and an intelligence battle. Don't expect that. Not saying that that's going to happen. I'm just saying.
You're just talking in general.
It would be interesting if Frankie interacted or said, like, that's an interesting form you've got there, Queen, or something, or take something. Also, wouldn't be surprised if during this time, once Sanji beats, Queen, maybe Frankie finds some of his blueprints, like Pluton, and is able to work on himself based on the knowledge that Queen is presenting. So I'm very interested in what implications Queen's abilities may play in the future, especially since before we get there, we see that Caesar's influence on Chopper is still taking place now. So it would be nice to see if something happens where later Frankie gets to benefit from Queen's knowledge here the same way that Chopper benefited from Caesar's knowledge previously.
Or even if it's not Frankie, when Sanji does put on the raid suit, he may tell him you're using it wrong. Maybe. Right. And then Sanji learns how to use it the right way.
And so that would be interesting. Another thing I'm thinking was going to be really great for Sanji, and convincingly, I believe once Sanji beats Queen, what we were talking about previously, I can finally begin to say, okay, Sanji's beating all these other characters. And the main thing that I'm hoping for in this is that, okay, if Queen is a cyborg, then we should be seeing something similar to Frankie and Kuma. But remember, Frankie's basically saying, I'm impervious. I don't need armament hockey because I'm made of iron.
Yep. As long as you don't hit me on my back.
Could not be cut by Zoro. The Shishi Son Son made like this indentation on his shoulder, and it did cut through the flesh part, but it didn't quite cleave through that iron or metallic part of his shoulder. So if Sanji practically broke his leg on Virgo, then now I believe is the time for his armament hockey to get to a point where he can break Queen, literally the metallic parts of Queen. And I believe that this will be his battle to improve his armament hockey, because I think that, fire is fine, his speed is fine, but I think that Sanji needs to up his literal attack potency.
Yes,
it needs to be able to do more damage. And it reminds me of the scene where a lot of Sanji down players try to downplay him in Punk Hazard when he kicked that metal screen and it made just a very, very small indentation. Now, of course, that was a feat about the material being so ridiculously strong, but I think now is the time for Sanji to show his armament hockey's move to the next level. That is his weak point. It's time for that to happen. So I am pleased that Queen is not only a Zoan, making him tough like page 1, but that he's a cyborg.
He's a metal Zoan.
So it's metal, which I think is going to play out very well. So,
yeah, no, I'm into it. I don't think we see this battle next week. I think we might get more Frankie, more Jinbe, who's who, finishing that up. Maybe some Frankie Sasaki. Wouldn't be surprised if we see Black Maria and Robin, but I don't think we're diving into Sanji v Queen yet. Unless it's what you say and he ends him and then moves on to King. That's the only way I see that happening, but I feel like there's too much for him to talk about with Judge. Like I said, how you don't just have Queen there and not bring up Judge. And I feel like we have to get more into that. And I feel like this is more breadcrumb to Vegapunk whenever we do get to him.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, as much as I still want Sanji to face off with King,
seeming like this is his guy.
And I'm about to get into that with this next panel. So I'm just going to save these thoughts for this next page. So we move on to Chopper. I find the effects of this hilarious because I did not necessarily get it in the unofficial. I didn't understand why he was called Baby Geezer. This translation made it a little bit clearer. So basically, Chopper is a baby, but he's talking more like an anime old man,
Mm-hmm.
where he's kind of like, wait, where did he say? He said, "Hey, I'll be fine. You just focus on yourself, Sonny." And it's like,
Yeah.
Sonny? Okay. So he's an old geezer, but he's also a baby. So, speculating there, it's like, what did Caesar do? Is that a lineage factor thing? So has Chopper mentally aged while he physically regressed because the drug isn't perfected yet? So it caused some kind of dysphoria between the mind and the body.
In the body. That's a good point.
So that's what I'm thinking is going on here. And once Chopper fixes it, it'll be a whole lot better. But it's also a callback back to Enies Lobby with Lucci, where when Luffy first uses Gear Third, which is his gigantifying ability,
turns into a baby.
So there's no question that this is something for Chopper to overcome, and probably will be overcome off screen the same way Luffy overcame his miniature version. Although I have to mention this. This is completely a segue. It just came to mind. So again, I know we don't discuss Boruto here, but lately, there was a chapter, not chapter, the anime episode with Jigen facing off with Naruto and Sasuke. All right, his ability, spoilers, so he can shrink. All right.
Oh,
so,
see, I didn't even know that.
Going back to Luffy, when I was watching that fight, I was thinking, wouldn't it be interesting if Luffy could shrink on purpose, though? Like if he's moving around at high speeds and you're having a hard time finding him, then wouldn't it make it harder for you to see him if he could shrink his body intentionally?
True.
So I've always wondered if that side effect could come back as something that Luffy could then use to his advantage. I don't know, but that's a one-off thing. So
it does help for Chopper merch.
It does. I mean, this is obviously Chopper merch, without a doubt. This is in our faces merchandising. All right,
that's a fact. Especially with like little samurai helmet, that's gonna be little plushies.
Oh, without a doubt. That's literally the textbook definition of a plushie. It's crazy.
Now, what's up with your man's? Is your man's fighting King?
No, man. I'm like this is what I'm about to explain. So you have Luffy earlier in his what we call the sand pods, waiting to get back up, and here's Vegeta. I said Vegeta. Here's Zoro as the Vegeta in the same position. Okay, so it seems pretty interesting how Zoro's been able to get rest whenever he needs to, but anytime he needs to be awake, he's awake. So he overhears this entire discussion about how the minks have this restorative chemical or drug or whatever, but it's going to have twice the effect of pain later. Now, this is what's interesting to me about this. First of all, when I was reading it in the unofficial, I wasn't sure. I'm pretty sure they called it like a miracle cure or something like that. But
yeah, I don't remember.
The phrase that they use in the official is it's ultra regenerative effects. Yeah. So if it's temporary, though, it's not like he's going to regenerate or his bones are going to reconnect temporarily, So at first I was trying to understand, is this like superpowered Advil where it's going to be a pain blocker for him?
Good question.
Or is this actually going to heal him? To make a reference to like Guts, when he uses his berserk armor and he breaks his arm, the armor automatically puts his arm back into place, but it's not restoring it. It's literally ripping his bones and ligaments until it's back in its proper place. So is this something that is going to literally heal Zoro, or is it more of a pain blocker? So the fact that it was called an ultra regenerative
makes me think it's gonna heal him, but do that Guts thing.
Right. So maybe similar to like the plague that Queen developed. If you remember, it forced Hyogoro's life to be pushed into a corner where it pulled out the last dregs of his ability, literally having an ultra regenerative effect. Hyogoro went from his old decrepit form back into his prime form, but it still used up Hyogoro's life force. So is this regenerative effect going to use up like Zoro's life force, forcing him to regenerate quicker so that whenever the pain tolerance wears off, not only has Zoro, broken 30 bones, but he's effectively gone through the recovery of healing 30 bones in all of, like, let's say an hour, which would be a massive toll on his body, i.e., double the pain. That's kind of how I'm working right now.
That's that's how I'm thinking about it as well.
Okay. So
I didn't think of it as
pain
as like a painkiller. I took of it more of along the lines of that. Yeah.
Well, you see, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, if it's a painkiller, then it also makes sense. But then I don't understand why they would call a painkiller like regenerative rather than, straight up like a painkiller or a pain blocker or something like that. So I am curious to know, is this going to literally regenerate Zoro and then he's just going to have to put up with the pain later? Or is it nothing but a pain blocker and he's going to be effectively fighting with a broken body, literally?
Yeah, I think it's the first rather than the latter, because he couldn't be able to. I don't think he'd be able to move with all of that.
Right. Even if he can't feel the pain, that should impede his movement. So I don't think that's the case. Again, this is going to be a nothing happened follow-up. It should make the previous one look probably like child's play. So I'm all for that as a Zoro fan. But to get into the King stuff, so I don't think, Jinbei is going up against King. I can't see what Marco would do if he's not fighting King. Like, I feel like it's a waste for Marco to beat King, but I just don't see who else would do it at this point.
Me neither.
Denjiro, we were discussing this before. I think he's going to go and protect Hiyori in whatever capacity that plays out. There's no way in the world Zoro goes from Roof Piece, doing everything that he did, realizing that he was helping Luffy and that they were managing when it was all five of them, or at least it was him and Luffy somewhat. And then as soon as he leaves, pretty much he finds out that his captain was, sunk into the ocean. So there's no way he's getting up and he's showing this sense of urgency, saying, the only thing that matters is being able to fight now to go fight King.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He's not going to be like, Luffy couldn't handle King, Kaido before. This time he will. I need to hurry up and go fight King, who's already being dealt with. No, that's not going to happen. So if Zoro's not fighting King, I want Sanji to hurry up and finish Queen. But, if you hurry up Queen, then you lose out on the whole Judge and Vegapunk plug. So I don't necessarily think that Sanji's going to do a speed job on Queen. And I don't see anyone else relieving Marco to fight King. So I think we're just going to get our Flame Bird matchup, and that's just what it is.
It's looking that way. It is looking that way. And I mean, that could make for good story,
Yeah.
And we
the anime is going to expound on that. So.
Exactly. But you make great points. I do think Zoro is rushing back to get to Kaido. I truly do believe that, and we'll get a Zoro and Luffy v Kaido moment. But my man Who's Who has this big old sheath for a tiny little dagger.
All right. Again, Bleach fan, I think that this is a reference to Ging. I think he can either shrink his blade and he's using it as a pistol in this case. Now, of course, he's using the 6 powers. So if Rob Lucci can make finger pistols, then there's no question that, he can do that. But I don't understand why he would have a big old sheath unless that blade can extend. In that swipe that we see when he's using blade pistol, I don't think he's necessarily extending it. It might just be him stabbing and using pistols like that. But I do believe that blade can extend, which might be very, very interesting, because if it can extend longer than, a long blade like Law's blade, then we might see some crazy things happen.
Yeah, some good fighting.
That thing can get really, really, really long.
But I love seeing him use the 6 powers. I think that's so interesting to make Who's Who that type of fighter, different from with everything else. I really love that.
I absolutely love it as well, because again, we get that sense that Who's Who can fight you using his devil fruit. He can fight you in his hybrid form, or he can use 6 powers at any given point. And, when we looked previously, it was like, okay, Lucci used his 6 powers, but it was like really he was just using shade or shave,
Iron Body,
Ranketsu, Iron Body, and that was really about it.
and maybe Fang Pistol. Some Fang Pistol action, maybe a little bit.
Fang Pistol, as in what? Who ends up using?
He didn't. Rob Lucci didn't do that like a couple times to Luffy.
I don't remember Rob Lucci doing the same thing that Who did. He might have.
I thought I could have sworn he did. Maybe,
I don't.
maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, hold on. Let me see if Rob Lucci's ever used Fang Pistol.
Because I thought
remember.
he did. Because I thought it was very little Tempest kick.
A new ability. I thought that was one of the new implementations of the 6 powers. But okay. I might be wrong because it's been a while. Let's see. Does he use Fang Pistol?
He might not have. Because I'm Googling looking for the image. He might not have.
I don't think so. I think his thing was Ranketsu. No, not Ranketsu. The Rokugan, I want to say. And then his finger pistol. So he'd rather use his finger rather than the Fang. So I think that this was who's implementation of the finger pistol.
Okay.
But no, it's definitely interesting, and Jinbe highlights this by saying, like your use of the 6 powers is very interesting. I like the way that this is matching up here. Again, we're getting some interesting choreography because Blade Pistol, in my opinion, was super cool. First of all, you know how I am about swordsmen. So who's already high in my books because he's a swordsman. Those implementations with Blade Pistol was awesome. Jimbei using Fishman Karate
to block it,
using the water molecules in the air to deflect that. And we see, who's actually kind of like shook by this. Now, I'm a little bit confused. Does he purely block it? Because we do see the lines outside of him, like he maybe got rocked a little bit. Like maybe, I can't pronounce this, but arabesque fist.
The brick kick?
Brick fist. Maybe it just began to hit who's who and he got out of there. And then he counters with, that Tempest kick. And we see that Jinbe is a freaking tank. Okay.
Yeah, and just straight
I don't get the sense
hockey.
that Jinbe moves around at like high speeds. He kind of sets himself up. He knows where your observation hockey, he's up there. So he kind of sets himself up as a heavy defensive point. You come to him and he's going to block whatever. So again, we get that very nice, forearm from Jinbe that we see all the time. It's solid. Blocks that Tempest kick. And he comments on the Iron Body. Who's who in that panel right after that looks absolutely menacing.
In his hybrid form. Yeah, he looks great.
I love that drawing. He looks absolutely menacing. And then this leads into that Fang Pistol, that dodge animation that Jinbe has here with the dash lines was very clean. The way that Fang Pistol completely symmetrically took a circle out of that pillar behind Jinbe. Dangerous.
Makes you think Jinbe's neck. Ooh.
Yeah, it gives me the same kind of feelings that Arlong. No, not Arlong.
It was Arlong who did that. Wow.
Yeah,
that's who it was that did something like this.
And Hody, and we found out, post time skip at first, Luffy's armament wasn't strong enough that he could completely negate his weakness. We know that sharp objects are a weakness of Luffy, yet Hody was still able to bite through his armament hockey. So the fact that Jinbe dodged this presumably very quickly means that this attack is pretty lethal.
Yep.
I don't think Jinbe could have tanked that.
No. And then that just leads into us finding about who's who actually is.
Right. And that's interesting because if he went to jail, does that mean he was in Impel Down? I don't think so.
Or was he in like Marine jail, if they have that? Like in real life there's Army and Marine and Navy jail.
I think it was closer to that because like obviously who's who knows of Jinbe. Jinbe doesn't really know of who's who.
He's just heard a story.
Has just been around for a long time, so he knows stuff about the world. So he pieced two and two together about him being a CP9, secret former agent or whatever. But at first I thought, okay, was Who's Who also an Impel Down? But I think that's strictly for pirates for the most part. I think Marines and other civilians and other people who are not pirate related get their own prison. Because again, who would have freed Who's Who? Kaido did not go to Marineford as far as we know.
And it says he broke himself out.
Right.
And he's not breaking out of Impel Down.
Right. So that was definitely interesting. I'm not gonna. We both agreed on this. Not gonna put too much stock into the gum fruit being some kind of.
You're not getting that from us. I've seen a bunch of people do the Joy Boy. Did Roger have this? I'm not doing that. I just feel like he lost his job because Shanks stole his fruit. Simple and plain. Like, he just was transporting a fruit that could have gone to either a CP member or to a Marine. And because he was thought of as this high protege level, because he lost it, he lost his job. I don't think it's any more than that, because if it's wood, like we talked about off air, like we saw with the Op fruit, they sent, not only did they send Corazon, like Sengoku was going to the spot, like Sengoku was one of their strongest at the time. If that's the case, they're sending someone stronger to go after that fruit. And no one went after it. So I don't think it's that big of a deal.
CP9 is a high caliber. So the world government probably would feel comfortable. But if it's what people are saying it is, there would have been an admiral present if this was like Marco's Phoenix fruit or Kaido's dragon fruit or the Soul fruit of Big Mom or the Opie fruit from Law. It would have garnered more than just Who's Who guarding it. And possibly if a devil fruit of that caliber was lost, the person would have been put to death.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if someone like a Kainu was the leader at the time, which obviously he wasn't. Sengoku was probably the leader during this time. So I'm not going to read too much into that. It is curious.
It's interesting. I like the callback. Like, I think it's great storytelling, but I don't think it's much
someone
more
brought up a panel that when Rob Lucci was fighting Luffy, he said, "I wish I could tell a certain idiot I know about this." So it is a nice callback if he was referring to Who's Who by saying, like, maybe that was Oda's way of dropping, people know about the gum fruit, but it's still not huge. So it's not like Rob Lucci's like, holy crap, you have the gum fruit. He was just kind of like, oh, you somehow got your hands on the fruit Who's Who is supposed to protect. Mm-hmm. Oh, isn't this ironic? I'd love to tell this idiot I'm fighting the guy,
who had the fruit. And see, I think like that's all it is. Like that. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not diving much more into that. You're not getting any theories out of me on that one.
You can get jokes out of it. It's fun to be like, Luffy's being held, he's being carried by the gum fruit. But I mean, that's just joke of the week type things. I don't think that's too much. I think that's just Oda showing us that he thinks ahead, and it's, you just leave it at that.
Yep. And that's pretty much all we got this week, man. Christian, tell the people where they can follow you at on social media. I'm excited for next week. No break, so we're going to be right back. Next week's chapter, what's your bet? Do we see Yamato Kaido? Number one, do we see more Jinbe Who's Who? Do we see Sasaki Frankie, Black Maria Robin, or Dark Horses Inarashi and Jack, and Sanji and Queen, or Super Dark Horse King and Marco?
I don't think we're going to be getting Yamato and Kaido anytime soon. I think they're going to be getting the same thing as pretty much the Scabbard treatment. By the time that Luffy and Zoro make it back up, she's going to be on her last legs pretty much.
And then backstory time, man.
Yeah, and then we're probably going to either get a flashback of what happened intermittently, or, she'll explain briefly, like, I tried holding him off. Didn't go too well. But it seems you guys made it. So, whatever, something along those lines. So I kind of feel like we'll probably get something along the lines of more Jinbe versus Who's Who to continue off where we left off.
I'm with that one.
So again, I think we're going to be focusing on Jinbe at this point. So maybe just a little bit, like a flashover of what Frankie and Sasaki are doing. If anything other than that, it would possibly be Robin and Black Maria. I don't think we're going to be getting too much more Tama stuff right now. I think she's done what she needed to do for the most part. I don't think we're going to get any Nami or Usopp.
No, I don't think we're getting any Sanji right now because I think this was supposed to be the tie over.
Sanji and Queen need to have their on-screen, on-panel time where it's talking about, these two, because not only does Sanji has he been starved in this battle manga shonen, but the implications of Judge is too important to constantly be cutting away from that. So that's going to be saved from when we can get communication and action in the same chapters, all pertaining to him. So I don't think we're getting that. So I put my bets on Who's Who, Jinbe, some more, maybe a little bit of Frankie Sasaki. I'm hoping for some Black Maria, Robin, but I wouldn't mind fleshing out Jinbe and Who's Who first, since we've already started there. That's kind of how I'm seeing it right now.
That's kind of what I'm seeing as well. I think if we
I don't think we're gonna get any Law Kid and Big Mom.
No. I think that's post, like, that might be post whenever we see King again. Like, I think that's for a minute. I think we're in the Jimbei, Who's Who, Sasaki, Frankie, Black Maria, Brooke, and Nico Robin territory. Yep. And then I think the next tier after that is once we get through these three, which will probably be about the next 3 weeks, then I think we move on to either Sanji, Kid Law, or Inarashi Jack, or whatever King's doing. And I think that's the next tier. And then the final tier is obviously Roof Piece. But tell the people where they can follow you at on social media.
So on Twitter, it's going to be Arc Season, ARCHSZN. And for my graphic design content, it's going to be Design Season LLC on Instagram and on Twitter.
Y'all make sure y'all go follow Christian and check out some of his art. Hit him up, and then he'll get you some flames. Make sure you follow me at LynBWT. Follow Bros Think at Bros Think. A lot of stuff dropping this week. Y'all can stay up to date with all that by following us on Twitter. Also, Christian has a match coming up on July 10th. Another Pitch It match for one of the spots in the summer extravaganza to get the belt. It's gonna be him. He is looking for one of the 2 spots that's not locked up. There is 2 spots that are locked up. Dan Exclaims and Shamit Dua have them. We're trying to find the others to get to see who gets the belt. So he's going to be battling on July 10th. Y'all be sure to be on the lookout for that. But other than that, that's pretty much all we got this week. We'll talk to you next week. Until then, peace.